Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of the Ladykillers model railway build. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how to build a custom built backscene for your layout. And I'm going to be using an online software program. I'll tell you all about that in just a moment. Really easy and simple to use. Anyone can do it. But first things first, you may have noticed slightly different location. Over the last few weeks, some of you may know I've moved house. I'm now living by the glorious seaside, and if you listen very closely, you might hear a seagull or two. So I'm in my conservatory. It's all very temporary. If there's a bit of an echo on my voice, just bear with us. It's all going to be changed over the next few weeks. But let's get started with building a backscene or creating a backscene for your layout. As you can see, I have the Ladykillers on 3 different layers. We've got level 1, level 2, and there's level 3. Now, if I wanted to use a standard backscene, the kind that you can buy online, most of them are between 12 and 15 inches high, just wouldn't cut it for my layout. Also with the Ladykillers, of course, it's a really iconic film, and for that I wanted to kind of reflect that and incorporate all those different scenes and landmarks from the era and the location. I've got around 5 different cameos on this layout, and I wanted to get as many of those landmarks on the backscene as possible, and that meant doing a little bit of jiggery pokery, if you like, with the online software. And I'm going to be explaining about how I did all that in just a moment. First things first, though, I have to talk a little bit about backboards. As you can see, I've created my backboards. I've made them using 6mm plywood. You can, of course, use Foamex. The advantages of using Foamex is that it's very lightweight and you can bend it, which means you can create a curved backscene and get rid of those not very attractive right angles at your corners. However, for an exhibition layout, I've chosen not to go with Foamex because it doesn't take a battering very well. I'm going to be moving it in and out of the studio, in and out of the trailer, and Foamex is really not going to stand up to that kind of stress. So plywood it is, and I've created 3 different pieces for either side. And of course, with this one, because there are 3 levels, it had to be quite high, but I'll go into the details of measurements in just a moment. So there we go. Now, as I said, why create your own custom bespoke backscene? Well, the clue is there. It's custom, it's bespoke. You'll have a backscene like no one else's. But if you wanted to make life really nice and simple for yourself, there are a great number of fantastic backscenes available online from the likes of ID, Scaleology. You can buy them from your local model railway shop. Pico, of course, do a great variety of backscenes. But as I said, these are standard heights between 12 and 15 inches. So you're not going to get that much interest on them. But I am going to show you a little trick to how you can customize even a shop bought backscene a little bit later. For now, though, I'm going to talk you through how I created this backscene and also how to create a standard panoramic view, if you like. And I'm going to do that using a software called Canva. Now, Canva has been around years. I've used it for over 10 years. There's a free version and a paid for version. The free version, you can create pretty much a great backscene for your layout. But if you wanted to pay a little bit more, it's really worth it. I use Canva for everything from my website design to my business cards to flyers to floor plans for the shows and even backscenes. It's incredibly versatile. So I'd really recommend you have a look and maybe consider that pro version. Little tip for you though, you can do a 30-day free trial, and that's plenty of time to create your backscene and then cancel that free trial if you don't want to go ahead with it.
Now, there are a number of free online software tools you can use to design your backscene. There's Adobe, GIMP, Design Wizard, to name but a few. But I've found Canva to be really easy to use, and it's also incredibly versatile in helping me design everything I need. I'm not affiliated with Canva. I don't earn any money from recommending it. I just really love it.
After I've created the backscene on Canva, I'm going to then send it off to be printed. And I'm going to get it printed on laminated paper. I'm going to do, for this, I used A0 and A1 size, and I had it laminated with a matte finish. And the reason, I've talked about this before, I use lamination for my model railway signs and my backscenes. The primary reason is because the inks don't fade. A lot of times layouts will be at shows in direct sunlight, and that will fade anything on paper. Also, another advantage of using a laminated paper is that when it comes time to stick it to your backboard, what you'll find is you don't get those irritating air bubbles underneath the paper. It goes on nice and smooth. You don't have to iron out any bubbles. You don't have to worry about there being kind of creases in your paper, nice and smooth. So I'll talk you through how I do that and also the printer I use, but of course, by all means, use your own online printing or your own local printer to do your backscene.
Now, I'm of the opinion that a backscene can really make or break a model railway layout. No amount of extraordinary railway modelling is going to make up for a dodgy backscene, let me tell you. Now, of course, there are several ways you can create a backscene. I've seen hand-painted backscenes, I've seen the standard graphic backscenes you get from Pico, and I've seen standard off-the-shelf photographic backscenes from companies like ID. Now, my feeling about painted backscenes is unless you are an exceptional artist and create hyper-realistic art, then I would avoid painting your backscene. It really can take away the overall effect of your model railway layout if it's not quite as perfect as you want it to be. The only exception I would say is if you're using an abstract kind of painting technique, or if you're very good at doing sky. And I've seen two model railway layouts that are the exception to the rule. One is Paul Hollywell's Moore's View, and the other is the Huddersfield Railway Society's Mills Bridge. Now, Moore's View has this lovely, simple sky backscene, and that works really, really well. And Mills Bridge has, again, a very abstract sepia-toned sky background. Again, works incredibly well. Also, if we look at the future of backscenes, I think very soon a lot of model railway layouts are going to be using animated backscenes. At Getz last year, I saw a layout which had an animated screen behind it showing a thunderstorm with lightning, and that was very, very effective. And I think there'll be more of that to come. But for now, I'm just going to stick with what I know. And in my personal opinion, the best kind of backscene you can create for your layout is one that uses photographs. So again, you can either buy an off-the-shelf photographic backscene from an online company, or do as I did with the Ladykillers and Brief Encounter and create your own. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now.
So shall we get started? I'm going to log onto my laptop and I'm going to show you from my screen how I create these backscenes.
So we're going to go ahead and log into Canva, which is www.canva.com. And when you log in, you'll see this. This is the home page. And at the top, you'll see what will you design today, and a little section here where you can actually write and specifically ask for what you want to design. Or along the bottom here are a whole series of templates, which is really, really handy. They've got a wide variety of templates for things like documents, A4 documents, flyers, social media. You can see they've already created lots of different templates for Facebook and Instagram and so on and so forth. So when you have time, have a look through, and it's quite interesting to see how many tools and templates they have for you to use. But unfortunately, they don't have a template for backscenes, so we're going to have to create our own. Along the left-hand side here, you've got some buttons: Create, Home, Projects, Templates, Brand, Canva AI Apps. Don't worry about any of those. We're just going to focus on Create. I'm going to keep this as simple as possible and just teach you what you need to know to create a backscene, but lots to explore if you have the time. And incidentally, I am offering a course on Canva. If you're interested in learning more about Canva, then do let me know. Send me an email and I'll pop the details below. If you're interested in having a little course on how to use Canva to create a whole bunch of designs, from flyers to floor plans to templates to business cards, let me know. So let's get started. When you log on, if you haven't used Canva before, this area will be blank. But as you can see, I've got some designs in here already, and these are my Ladykillers backscenes. So you're going to get a bit of a sneak peek behind the scenes of what the Ladykillers backscenes looks like. We'll start with this one. This is my main backscene, the one that runs along the back of the Ladykillers. And I'll show you along the bottom here is you can resize this image. You can make it smaller or bigger. You can go up to 100%. And that's going to come in really, really handy later on when we want to make sure that we've got the size of our scene correct, that we've scaled it correct to our layout. As you can see, lots of familiar icons from the Ladykillers, from that era and that location. And literally it is a collage of images that I've collected, a mixture of stock images that I've bought, images that are in the public domain, and even photographs that I've taken myself, and a couple of images that I've put which are from companies like Scale Model Sceneries. They create cutouts that you can cut out and glue to your back scene, and I have a couple here. Now, one thing you're going to notice about the Ladykillers back scene is that as a standalone picture, it all looks like a bit of a jumble, but when in place on the layout, it all really works. In fact, it works much better than even I anticipated it was going to. So as you can see, all of these elements are just individual sections. Even this tree, I'm going to show you the tree. And they're all just elements I added in. I like this one. This is, if I've got this one correct, no, there's another tree. This one is just buildings from the area. I've got a little bit of bomb damage. I googled bomb damage images because around that time London was pretty much still being rebuilt, and lots of bomb damage and rubble around. This blue area here represents where level 2 is. So I did some exact measurements and I made sure to put this in, and that tells me that's an area I don't need to put any images in. They won't be seen. Now, handily, I can redo all this. I can just put everything back where it came from. This is a very handy feature up here. If you create something and you don't like what you've done, you just hit the back button up here and it will erase the last step or last few steps, which is really, really handy. The back color here, I experimented, this color gray, I experimented with lots of different color, sky colors. Blue didn't seem quite right. It seemed a bit too cheerful and a bit too bright and sunny. So I eventually ended up with this great color, and that worked very, very nicely. I really liked it. So that's how I've put together the Ladykillers back scene there. Nothing makes much sense. You've got a building on top of another building. You've got hard edges from photographs, but don't worry about that. I knew that I was going to eventually cover those aspects with physical buildings, with 3D models. So if it all looks a little bit jumbled, it all makes sense in the end, if you like. So I'm now going to show you my other sections, my left and right hand section, and these are here. And again, a mixture of iconic buildings. There's St Pancras, there's the Great Northern Hotel. I think this is the library. I'm trying to remember where I got that one from, but I Googled extensively and did a lot of research about buildings in the area. Here you can see the gas holders. Now, these are actually photographs I took of the gas holders I built. And what I wanted to do, I have 2 gas holders on the layout, but I wanted to make it look like they were part of the collection that was there at the time around the area. Gas holders 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They were at that area around where the robbery was in the film. And so what I did is I stood the gas holders on a table, I took photographs, and then I used a very handy technique, which I'll show you later, which is called a background remover, to remove the background, and then I superimposed them there. Again, I'll show you exactly how I did that in just a moment. I've got street scenes, I've got clouds, I've created quite a tapestry of clouds. This is actually a cloud that I flipped, I turned around, I rotated, and then I darkened to make it look like a plume of smoke. So all kinds of fun things you can do with Canva. Again, I've got my green block to represent level 2. Now these blocks here represent 3D models. So I've got the terrace houses here, I've got a building here, and I've got King's Cross, the kind of physical model of King's Cross there. So I knew that I didn't want to put anything interesting on the back scene in these areas because no one would see it. So it really helps to, once you've created your back scene, to physically put on elements that represent your buildings. I'll show you again a bit later on. Okay, that's just to explain how I've created all of those elements, and I'll talk you through the individual aspects of each in just a moment. But first of all, let's get started, because how on earth do we get it all started? How do we create our templates in the first place? So what we're going to do is go back to the home page by clicking this button here, and that brings us back to this main menu, and we're going to click this button here, Create. And this is where we're going to input the dimensions for our scene. Now we don't need any of these templates. We're going to click down here on Custom Size. If you haven't already measured your backscene, now is a good time to go and do it. Grab a tape measure and go and measure the different parts of your backboards. In my case, I have 3 backboards, the back, the left and the right. You may have 1, you may have several. And what I do is I measure from the top of the baseboard up to the top of the backboard, okay? Anything below the top of the baseboard is not going to be seen. And so you don't want to waste money on printing an image that's not going to be seen. So the top of my baseboard to the top of my backboard is 36 centimeters. And I know that the width of my backboard is 130 centimeters. The first thing you need to do is go along to units here and change it to a measurement. Pixels, PX is pixels, and that's good for digital media. But I use centimeters. You might want to input in millimeters or inches. That's completely up to you. I'm going to click centimeters, and then I'm going to put in my width, 130 by 36. Now, I would add an extra centimeter onto the height just to kind of create a bit of an overlap. You don't want there to be a line where it meets the baseboard. So just give yourself a little bit of extra room to create an image. Also at the top, what I always do on my back scenes is I add a rubber strip at the top to the backboard to protect the edges and protect any warping or curling of the back scene. So again, allow a little bit of extra at the top to allow for that rubber strip, okay, if that makes sense. Now we're going to click Create New Design. And what it will do, it will create your template here. I'm just going to get rid of that. And along the bottom here is your slider to minimize, to make it look a little bit more manageable. So this, I know to scale, is my back scene. And this is the area that I'm going to fill with photographs for my back scene, whether it's the collage of photos for the Ladykillers or a panoramic image. There are 2 ways you can add your images. You can either use your own photos and upload them, or your own artwork and upload it, or you can use Canva's library of photos. Now, Canva has a very wide library of images that you can use. They're all royalty free, so you don't have to worry about any copyright issues. For the basic plan, there's a good selection, but if you wanted that extra choice, if you like, then you can go for the Canva Pro plan, and then that unlocks a whole bunch of extra images for you to use. To find the photos, you go along to the left here and you go to the bottom, and there should be a tab that says Photos. Now, if there isn't a tab that says Photos, sometimes it gets hidden. Click Apps, and then if you type in Photos, okay, and then it will find you. You click on that, and then it will add it down here on the left. So we're now in the Photos app, and this is where in the search bar you type in what you're looking for. I'm going to type in countryside panorama and see what comes up. Panorama. And it will give you a whole selection of images, and you can just fill your boots if you like, choosing them. This one I think looks quite nice. So you click it and it will instantly move it across to your space. Click on that to hide it. Now we want to fill this space with the whole image, so we're just going to drag it to make it taller and wider. Now if it starts going off the screen, just move the scaler here, and then you can keep dragging, and the goal is to fill all of this white space with the image. Okay, now that's about it. We've filled the whole of the white space. Click here, and then I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so I can see. And that looks quite good. So you can actually double click on it, and you can do all kinds of things like crop it or expand it. You can play around with it, or you can move the image left or right just to get the scene that you want. Whenever there's a white space, that means that the picture hasn't filled the document. So you need to fill the whole space with the photograph, okay? And I think that looks quite nice. So that's one way of using photos. And I'm going to show you how I did this using a panorama of the riverside down by the Thames in just a moment. Now, if you wanted to play around with different layouts, if you weren't quite sure this is the one you wanted, and you wanted maybe 2 or 3 to choose from, you just click here, Add Page, and it will call up a new blank page, and then you can play around, maybe urban panorama, for example. Let's see what it gives us. Urban panorama, we want something that's kind of eye level. Actually, that looks quite good, doesn't it? And then we'll just drag and drop, drag the corners, and there you go. probably want to move that up a little bit so we've got a bit of the... Again, you can create all kinds of layouts that you really like. Play around to your heart's content. Let's do train station panorama. So this is about creating one single image. If you use an individual photo, like for example this one, what you're going to do is you're going to have trouble fitting it into your page. So you want to kind of look for panoramas as much as possible. If we were to try and expand that to fit the page, you're going to end up with something that looks quite huge, to be honest. You can move that up. Actually, that doesn't look so bad, but I think your trains will have to be quite large in order to scale. So again, all kinds of things to play around with. Obviously, you'd need to make sure that your back scene matches the scale of your layout. And that's something we'll talk about in just a moment. So that's one way to create your back scene using Canva's library. The other way is to upload your own photos. So I'm just going to add a page here. And late last year, I took Boo down to the riverside and I grabbed my camera, my phone camera, and took some images. It was a lovely sunny day, very cold. And I managed to grab some images, which I think would make a really nice panoramic view. So how do we get the photos onto Canva? Well, again, we go to the left-hand menu and we click upload. And as you can see, I've already uploaded lots of Ladykillers files. I'll show you those in just a moment. But for now, I want to upload the panoramic images I took of the river. So I'm going to click upload files. That will call up my computer files, and then you just look through your computer and find the images that you want to upload, and then they will upload here. There you go. The other way you can do them is you can actually drag and drop them over to this image here. They take a little while, but as you can see, I've got 4 images there that I'm going to show you how I create a back scene with these. So again, I'm going to click on it and it should appear over here. If it doesn't, just drag and drop. My computer's being a little bit slow. And then once again, we're just going to resize this image. Click on the image itself. Just one click will do. And then you drag the corners all the way, reposition it as you go, drag the corners until you fill the space. Now you can go bigger or smaller, whatever you want. If I wanted to just have the image quite large like that, that would look quite nice. But I want to show you a little trick, and this is for if you have the Pro version of Canva. And as you can see in these corners here, let me just make it a little bit larger for you. In these corners here, this is part of the pavement. As I took the panoramic image, it caught the edge of the pavement on the curve. I don't want those. So Canva offers a little bit of trickery here. So if you click on the photo itself, so it's highlighted, click on Edit, and this will call up a menu up here. And as you can see, this is Magic Studio. Now you can see which are Pro features because they have a little crown here. So if it's got a little crown on there, it means it's a paid for app that you can use within Canva. So anything else that doesn't have a crown on is free to use, but anything with a crown, you need the Pro plan. I'm going to go across here. You've got background remover, BG generator, magic eraser. You've got all kinds of tools. I'm going to go to magic eraser. Okay, and it'll call up this screen here. So you select your brush size here. You can make it bigger. Can you see on the screen it's going big, or you can make it small? I want it about that size. And then you literally paint over the area that you want to erase. And what Canva will do is it will then match the area that you're erasing. It's going a bit slow here. And then you click erase. And then it will perform the photographic equivalent of magic here, if you see. And there you go. Now, Magic Eraser is a bit hit and miss, I have to say. It doesn't always work, but I think that actually looks quite decent and could pass for having just water in this area here. And you can do the same on this side. I'm going to go to Edit, Magic Eraser, and again, maybe make my brush size a little bit smaller. I want to move the image over here. I'm just going to erase it over here. Just slightly gone off the screen there, sorry, you can't see that bit. And then click erase and it will do the same. And once again, I think that looks pretty decent, so I'm going to stick with that. Again, I would suggest the Pro plan is definitely worth it if you're going to be using Canva a lot and you use Canva in your everyday business. But if you don't want to use features like Magic Eraser and buy the Pro plan, then make sure when you take your photo that you are very happy with the image, or you can expand it so that any elements in the image that you don't want, you can remove from the picture. Okay, so I've created the back scene using my own photo. I've created the back scene using Canva's photos. As I mentioned, there is a third way of creating a back scene with Canva, and it's a little controversial maybe. I'm talking about using AI, and Canva does have an AI feature. I know many people are against using AI anywhere at all, but my own personal view is that we can't avoid it. It's already a huge part of our lives, and certainly model railway manufacturers are almost certainly using it to make their operations easier and simpler. And I'm going to be talking more about AI in this week's Wednesday Express, so do come along. It's this Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. If you hit subscribe and notifications, then you'll be notified of when we go live. AI for art is still pretty much in its infancy. There's some really bad AI art out there. Certainly with Canva's AI option, it still leaves a lot to be desired. Mainly the type of back scene it creates has a very strong graphic quality about it. I mean, it looks more like a cartoon, in other words. But there are certain places it does work well. Here is a futuristic dystopian scene for a Warhammer or steampunk layout, for example, and I think that could work potentially very well. How do you do it? How do you go about creating an AI back scene? Well, I'll show you. I'm going to go back to the back scenes I've already created. Let me just minimize these and make these smaller. And I'm going to add a page, and then I'm going to scroll down here to Magic Media. And here it says, describe what you'd like to create. And you have the option to create images, graphics, or videos. But for the purpose of this, we want to create images. So let me put in something like British countryside colour. Now, a word of advice here, the AI is only as good as the prompt you give it. So the more details you can put in here, the better. But let me just show you what it will do. And it takes a little while to think about it, and it will give you 4 different options. And here we go. And as I said, they all look very, very artsy. So these are not going to work on a layout. So let's create another one. Let's be more specific. And this time I'm going to say British countryside scene, panoramic scene. And then I'm going to say photograph scene, okay? And this time I'm hoping the AI will make it look more like a photograph. So let's have another go. So these don't look quite so bad, but let me see what they look like on there. Let me go a little bit larger and scroll down so you can see. Again, if I stretch this, I'm going to have to stretch this to fit my background. Again, not so bad, not as bad as it could be. I'm going to just make this smaller so I can stretch it to fill the scene. Let's see where the sky is. Actually, that works quite nicely like that. Hold on, bear with me while I fiddle around. If I just position it like that, that's not so bad actually, to be honest with you. How that's going to translate when it's printed, I don't know. I can't really tell how high quality that image is, but you know, as I said, not so bad as a back scene. I'll show you something a little bit more futuristic. Let's go back here. Let's create a dystopian city scene, photograph color, and see what it comes up with. Okay, so again, rather hit and miss. If I add a page here and drag it across, I think you could play around with this forever and ever and ever, and getting something that you really, really like. So for a Warhammer or steampunk, that might look quite nice. As I said, hours of fun to be had. And again, AI is not for everybody. I know people who are absolutely against using AI, and I can see the point where we don't want to ruin creativity, and we certainly don't want AI to steal other people's work. But I'll leave that with you. I personally don't use AI in my back scenes, but it's there as an option. I'm now going to show you a little bit about how I created the back scene for the Ladykillers. And I'm going to show you some tricks and techniques that you can use to create your own layout using kind of a collage effect. So let's go back into my Ladykillers layout back scene here. This is the main one. So I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller here. And what I've done is I've added a page here, and I'm just going to get rid of the color. When you add a page, it should look like that. It'll be basically white. The first thing to do when you're creating a collage effect or any kind of DIY back scene is to create the sky, if you're going to have sky. Now, do you remember when we were at school and we used to make the sky at the top and the grass at the bottom, and then there was just lots of white space in between? Well, one of the basic rules of art is that the sky always goes all the way to the bottom. So when you're creating sky on a back scene, you're going to choose a uniform color and you're going to fill the back scene completely. Now, as I said, I used grey for the Ladykillers because I wanted to create a very pale, dreary kind of scene. To create colour, you go up here and you click on this tab here, and then it calls up a lovely colour palette here. And your colours will look different to mine. These are colours I use quite regularly in my businesses. Here there's a photo colours, so if you're going to add a photo, Canva will do some magic here and match some colours to your photo so you can create unique, cohesive designs. So let's have a look. The grey I used, well, I'm just going to find the grey. I think it was this one. That was the grey I used. And you can, have any colour you want, but play around with the colours and see what you fancy. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now, the next thing to do is to mark out any areas on your back scene that are going to be obscured by things like levels, bits of baseboard, or other permanent structures. In this case, I've marked out where level 3 is going to be. This blue section here marks level 3. On my layout, this is where the factories are, the warehouses. There's also a chimney in the corner here. And how I do that is I click on elements and then I type in the word square. I've already pre-typed it, and you click enter, and then it'll call up some shapes and you drag across the shape and then you can stretch it. So I already know that this is 60 by 10. So it's 60 wide. You drag it across until you see the width. The first measurement there is going to be 60 centimeters. So roughly 60 centimeters. I also know it's about 9.9, 10 centimeters high. I'll make it about 10. And then you put it in place. So I'm just going to put it in that corner there. So now as I'm building my back scene, I know I don't need to worry about putting any buildings in this part here. I'm going to get rid of this for now because I'm going to just build the back scene with all the various collage elements. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding my buildings, and I'm going to start building up layers. So I'm going to put buildings in the background on first and then move on to the buildings in the foreground. I'm going to do the clouds last because I want to know where the spaces are in the sky to put them. And there's a little feature that you can use with Canva which allows you to move each of the separate images either forward or backward on the page, so you don't have to worry too much about the order. Firstly, I'm going to go to my uploads, and I've already uploaded, of course, my scene. So let me just replicate what I've created here. So I'm going to find over here in the right hand corner my lighthouse building, and I'm going to drag it across and I'm going to expand it up and down until it looks basically right. I think I cut it off about there because I didn't want poles or the street scenes in. Obviously this is quite a vivid colour, but I don't want any of this background in, and I certainly don't want some poles or the people in. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a feature called background remover, and again this is for the pro plan. So Ladykillers, I require the pro plan for some of the elements. So you click on background remover and it will take a few minutes and it will do its magic. And there you go. Now, I'm not too happy with how sharp this image is. When you're creating back scenes, remember that these are scenes that are in the distance. And as a rule of thumb, the further away something is from the eye, or the further away it is towards the horizon, the paler it will be and the less in focus it will be. If you're going to have images in the background and the horizon that are sharp and brightly coloured, it will really ruin and create a very strange effect with your backscene. So this is a little bit too bright for me. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit, and again it will call up the adjustable features here, and I'm going to click on Adjust. And down here you will see a variety of different sliders, if you like, and you can play around with the temperature. That will change it from a warm color to a cool color. Tint will change it from red colors to green colors, but it's this one I want it to look a little less bright, so I'm going to slide it down, make it a little bit darker. I also want to change the color. It's a little bit too saturated for me, that color, so I'm going to click on this and just drain it a little bit of color and make it a little bit less colorful. The other thing I want to do, I think it's a little bit too sharp, so this one has a sharpness. Again, I'm just going to take the edge off it slightly, and I think I've almost matched the one at the top. I think I needed to play around. I think with that one I want to play around with contrast, and contrast takes away the shadow, so that makes it more shadow, and this one makes it less shadow. Okay, and again just playing around with it until I'm happy with it. I really don't like this post here, so what I'm going to do, click Magic Eraser. Here we go. And I want to get rid, although this isn't in the picture, I still want to get rid of it. I'm just going to make the brush size a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to click over these. Anyone who's used Photoshop will be familiar with these kinds of tools. I'm just going to take it down to there and take this and then click Erase. And there you go. I go back and hey presto, it's done the job for me there. Okay, I'm going to be putting buildings in front of that, so I'm not too worried. So I'm just going to basically go back to uploads and start uploading the shots that I have and recreating this scene here. Okay, again, I'm going to move it over and I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm just going to go through the same process. I'm going to erase the background and desaturate it and make it slightly out of focus until I've got all the elements in place. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing that and keep adding the process. Now I've got this, I've added some clouds. I'm just going to show you how I add clouds. So I'm going to click on Elements and I'm going to search for clouds. And it will give you a choice up here of graphics, photos, videos. We don't want graphics, we don't want it to look cartoony, so I'm going to choose photos. And then it's going to give me a selection, and I'm going to scroll down until I see some that I like, and I liked when I scroll down. So these ones here I thought were quite realistic. So I'm going to click, and that will drag the cloud over here. It's gone to the wrong one. Go down there. Let me expand this so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better, and I'm going to get rid of that. So here you see I've dragged my cloud onto my scene. Minimize it. I now want to make it a little bit smaller, and then I'm going to drag it into place. Okay, drag it into place. Now remember I said what you can do with this, you can adjust it. You can make it a little bit darker like a rain cloud. So if you go to your adjust function, click brightness, and you can make it really dark or you can make it really light. You can change it, whatever you want. This looks like the cloud is sitting on the roof, but I actually want it to look like it's behind it in the sky. So what you do, you click on it, you go to position, and I want it to go backwards. I want it to be behind this building. So if you click on backwards, and there you go. Obviously I had a few levels in front of it. So there's my cloud behind the buildings. I also want to add a tree. So I'm going to Elements, and I'm going to put in Tree. and I want actually a bare tree. So let's put bare tree. And it was this one that I used. Could use that one, I guess, but I wanted to use this one. Again, I want to drag it into place, and I want to get rid of that background. And now I have a tree. I'm just going to make it a little bit larger, and I'm going to put it over here because I want to hide that line there. Put it over there, and then I'm going to use the position. I'm going to move it backwards, backwards, back. Keep clicking backwards through the levels until it gets almost, I think that's about right. And then I'm just going to put it behind that building there, so I just see the branches and nothing else. Again, I think that's a little bit too black. So here's another thing that you can do. If something is a little bit too opaque, you can click on this button here, which is transparency, and you can move the transparency down so it becomes a little less vibrant and opaque, if you like. I don't want that tree to stand out, okay? So that's the tree. So there we go. So that is the main back scene there. Now this is for my main back scene, but of course I have a left and a right back scene. And for those, I use exactly the same process. I follow the same steps. However, when it comes to these corners, what you have to do is you have to make sure that they match or that they have some kind of continuity. And I'll show you a bit about how I do that in just a moment. But before I do that, I just want to do one more thing, and that is adjust for scale. Now, how do I know that these buildings are all the right size and all the right shape, and more importantly, that that tunnel is the right size? It's all very well having it that size, but what if the train is so big it won't go through it, or so tiny it looks ridiculous? Now then, you could of course just measure everything and make sure it's all in scale. What I do is I slide this across until it's 100%, okay, give or take. It doesn't have to be completely accurate. And then I scroll down, and now I can see the tunnel. And now what I physically do is I actually put the objects on my layout against this screen. So I will grab my loco and I'll put it against this, and I'll make sure that it looks absolutely right. Likewise, if I have any buildings that are going to go on the layout, I will put them against the layout and make sure that they're the right size. So if I have any laser cut kit buildings that I want to use, this is the bottom of my back scene. I will physically hold up the actual model itself, put it against this, and make sure that it all looks absolutely correct. And again, it's just a question of eyeballing it really and making sure everything works. There's no good putting a 3D model against this and it just looks completely out of scale. So that's my method of doing it, and it takes a little bit of tweaking until you're satisfied with it. So just to recap on some of the fundamental rules of creating a back scene like this one using a collage effect. Firstly, the sky goes all the way to the bottom of the back scene. The second factor is that the elements you use in the back scene become fainter and less focused the further they are away, the more they are on the horizon. So definitely use some of the options like the transparency tool and also the edit tool to adjust the color, as I showed you previously. Also, when you join up your back scenes, make sure the edges correspond, and I'm just going to show you now. Let me go back to my main menu here. So here I am at my main menu. I'm just going to show you my left and right pieces. Now, this bit here, this is my left-hand panel, my left-hand back scene, and this bit corresponds to the center back scene. So that's another factor that you have to bear in mind. Make sure that the elements on each side of your back scene match up with the central part of your back scene. And again, takes a little bit of tweaking. So I'm happy with what I've created, and now I need to download them to send them to the printer. If I were to send out these 3 images to the printer right now, they'd come back on possibly 2 or 3 pieces of paper with a lot of wasted space. But if I do this next step and arrange the back scenes on the paper myself, then I can control this process, and I can even throw in an extra couple of images as well. Here I've added some Ladykillers logos. Now I've worked out that I can fit all the back scene parts onto 2 sheets of paper, one A0 size and one A1 size. So I'm going to create 2 templates with these dimensions and arrange my back scenes on them. On this A0, what you can see is I've got my right hand backscene. I've got my main backscene, but I've had to do something a bit clever. I've had to split it. This is part of the backscene and this is the other part. So this is going to go off to the printers. When it comes back, I'm going to have to cut these elements out and I'm going to have to stick that onto that to join it. But first I need to download the individual backscenes as images, not PDFs. How we do that is we're going to click up here, share, and we're going to click download. Now, if I was sending this off to the printer right now, I would change this file type to PDF for print. But I'm not going to do that at the moment. I'm going to save this as a PNG, or you can save it as a JPEG, but I prefer PNG because I want this saved as a photo, a composite photo on my laptop, which I'm then going to re-upload to Canva. So bear with me, it will all make sense in a moment. So I'm going to select PNG, click done. You don't have to worry about any of these just yet. All you need to do now is just click download. And this is going to download to your laptop, your device, whatever it is. Now do the same for all of your backscenes, your left, your right, your back, whichever backscenes you've created in Canva. You're going to download them to your device as PNGs, and then we're going to re-upload them again. But first things first, I'm now going to create the templates for the A0 and A1 pieces of paper that I'm going to send off as a design to the printer. So I'm going to click on create, custom size, and then I'm going to add my dimensions. A1 is 841 by 594 millimeters. I'm now going to upload the PNGs that I've just downloaded. I'm going to upload them as images. And then I'm going to drag them across to the paper and try and arrange them in the best way I can. Once you have dragged across the image, you need to resize it to the size of the actual backscene. So here, this piece I need to resize to a width of 67 centimeters. It's important you get this bit right because otherwise you're going to end up with a print that's too big or too small for your backscene. So there you see I've got my side and I've got my Ladykillers signage. Now this time I'm going to download it as a PDF because I want to send this to the printer, this bit. So I'm going to click share, download. File type is going to be PDF, print. And I'm going to change this to CMYK. It's best for professional printing. I don't worry about any of this. I'm going to click download. And once again, this is going to download it to my device. And there it is, it's gone into my download file. Now, once again, I am going to be offering a Canva course for anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about how to use Canva and how to use all the tricks and techniques and create flyers and business cards and backscenes and posters and whatever it is that you need. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how to use Canva for your model railway layout or your model railway club, then let me know. Send me an email. I'll pop the details below this video. Right, so that's now gone off to my download file. So for printers, I use a company called Cheapest Prints Online. Okay, now I'm not affiliated with this company. There are lots of other printers that you can use, but this one I found to be really, really reliable and they give me a really good price. So make sure when you choose your printing company online, you have one that offers that bonus feature of matte lamination because it really does make all the difference. Now then, whether you've created a collage of images or have created a single panoramic image for your backscene, there are a number of things you can do to jazz up your backscene even further. Firstly, I mentioned these before, a number of companies sell these backscene cutouts or even stick-on images. I use these from Scale Model Scenery. I also like these perspective images from Model Town. If you Google Model Town backscenes, you'll find these on eBay. You can also buy ultra low relief, i.e. very thin 3D kits that you can put in front of your backscene, such as this Fry's building, also from Scale Model Scenery. I talked about those not so attractive corners before, and while you're going to want to match up the images on the side backscenes with the image in the back as closely as possible, you might also want to disguise the corners a little bit more with a model. In the case of the Ladykillers, I used a very well placed chimney.
So there you go, how to create your own bespoke backscene using Canva. I hope you found that useful. If you do, go ahead and use Canva. Show me your work, show me your progress. You can email me at modelrailwayquest@gmail.com, or why not join us live every week on the Wednesday Express, not stopping at
Peterborough.
See us there at 7:30 every Wednesday, and you can chat to me directly. Hope to see you there. You take care. See you in the next episode.
If you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of all my future videos. And why not browse the shop at modelrailwayquest.com/shop. And to receive a 10% discount on everything in the shop, become a Questie. Join the Model Railway Quest membership to receive that discount and a whole bunch of perks and goodies. Details on how to join are above. I'm Dawn Quest, and this is Model Railway Quest.